The banner on the screen read, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 only in cinemas December 5th. For a heartbeat the whole theater thought it was a joke. Then the screen went black and a metal cough echoed from the lobby. A stranger-sized animatronic head pushed through the foyer doors, its eyes glowing like small moons. It turned slowly toward the crowd and smiled. People stood frozen. Someone dropped popcorn. Before anyone could run, the lights flicked on and off, and the animatronic's smile broke into a sound. Sammy held Ben's hand tight. Claire shouted for help. The projectionist, Mr. Harrow, ran from the booth, but the stairs seemed to stretch and bend like a long corridor. The posters on the wall changed, the printed faces melting into grins. The banner that had promised December 5th felt wrong now, like a promise kept too well. 2 days before, Sammy had begged his mom to take them to the premiere. It says only in cinemas, he had told Ben, eyes bright. This is special. Claire had smiled and bought the tickets. The theater smelled like buttered popcorn and old floor polish. People chatted about the movie. Some said the suits were real animatronics from a closed pizzeria. Everyone wanted to be the first to say they'd seen it. As the film started, the first scenes were classic jump scare stuff. The animatronics on screen moved with stiff jerks, and the audience laughed, and then jumped. During a quiet part, Ben asked why one of the theater lights had a red glow. Sammy looked and saw a tiny face pressed to the glass of the exit door. At first he thought it was a reflection. Then the glass fogged as if from warm breath. The air grew cold and sticky. Behind them, a woman whispered that the poster dates were wrong. Her phone showed December 7th, not December 5th. Someone else checked and the showtimes had changed in the lobby display from premiere to private engagement. People stood to look and the floor hummed like a giant fridge. The sound came closer and the seats began to creak as if something heavy walked in the aisles. Sammy tried to stand but his legs felt wobbly. Ben clutched a stuffed bear and mouthed a prayer he had learned in school. Claire pulled out her phone, light stabbing the dark, but the screen showed a fuzzy version of the theater that was not their theater. In the image on her phone, more animatronics waited in the rows like statues, all watching the screen. The projector flashed one frame too many, and the banner on the screen suddenly changed to read, in quick, glitchy letters, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Sammy saw they were in the movie. He tried to move, but the seatbelt clicked. The nearest exit groaned and someone on the other side began to turn a big key. The lock started to twist. The key turned slower and slower, each click loud in the quiet. A shadow stretched under the door gap. Claire grabbed Ben and pulled, but the lock released with a heavy clank. The exit pushed open and a tall figure stepped into the theater. Its eyes were the same glowing moons from the poster, and it pointed at Sammy. The tall figure stepped fully into the theater, its metal feet clanging against the floor. Everyone gasped. Its glowing eyes moved slowly across the room until they stopped on Sammy again. For a moment, no one breathed. Claire pushed Sammy and Ben behind her, but the animatronic raised one hand and the entire theater door slammed shut behind it, sealing them in like they were inside a giant metal box. The animatronic's jaw opened with a crack, but instead of speaking, the movie screen behind it flickered to life. On the screen, Sammy could see himself, Claire, Ben, and the rest of the audience, but the version on the screen wasn't frozen in fear. They were all smiling, sitting perfectly straight, like puppets waiting for a cue. The theater Sammy watched the screen Sammy blink. Then the screen Sammy raised his hand in a slow wave. Ben grabbed Sammy's arm. That's not us. The lights buzzed overhead, shifting from pale yellow to deep blood red. With each flicker, the animatronic's head twitched. It took 3 slow steps toward Sammy's row, and with every step, the whole theater trembled like it was alive. Someone screamed and bolted for the back exit, but when they reached it, the door didn't lead to the lobby anymore. Instead, it opened into a dark hallway from the movie, filled with wires hanging like vines. The person stumbled back, sobbing. Claire held both boys tightly. Don't move. Don't run. Just stay behind me. Sammy nodded, but his heart hammered so hard he felt sick. One part of his mind kept whispering the same thing. This wasn't in the movie. This wasn't supposed to happen. Suddenly the animatronic jerked its head toward the ceiling. A metal creak echoed from above, and everyone looked up just in time to see another animatronic crawling along the rafters like a giant metal spider. Its hands were long and sharp, scraping sparks from the beams. It stared down at the crowd with a wide, broken grin. The projector sputtered and the on-screen Sammy suddenly stood up from his seat. Not real Sammy walked down the screen aisle and pointed directly out of the movie, at Ben. Ben squeaked and hid behind Claire. "Make it stop," he whispered. Sammy stepped forward, grabbing Claire's arm. "Mom, the screen, look!" The screen warped, like someone pressed on it from the inside. A hand pushed through the surface, stretching the fabric of the image like rubber. The hand was small, child-sized, and pale. It patted the inside of the screen as if searching for a way out. Several audience members bolted for the aisles, but the moment they reached the bottom row, the theater floor split slightly, revealing gears turning underneath. The floor moved like a conveyor belt, pushing them back toward their seats. Claire pulled Sammy and Ben close. "We're getting out of here. When I say run, you run." But before she could finish, every speaker in the theater crackled to life. A voice, cold, playful, and scratchy like an old tape, filled the room. "Welcome to the preview," it whispered. "Tonight, you are the show." The audience screamed as the ceiling animatronic dropped down, landing hard enough to shake dust from the vents. Its eyes snapped open, bright white, and it lunged forward. And the theater screen exploded in a shower of bright, white static that swallowed the whole room. When the static cleared, Sammy found himself standing somewhere else entirely. A long hallway. Flickering lights. A buzzing noise that grew louder with every second. And beside him, someone, or something, was breathing. The buzzing grew louder, like a swarm of angry electric bees humming inside the walls. Sammy froze. The hallway looked exactly like the one from the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 trailer. Long, gray, and too narrow. Lights flickered overhead in a slow, sick rhythm. Ben wasn't beside him. Claire wasn't either. Sammy was alone. But the breathing wasn't his. It came from the darkness behind him, steady and slow, like something large was waiting for him to turn around. Sammy swallowed hard. "Ben? Mom?" No answer. Only the buzz, and that deep breathing. He forced himself to look over his shoulder. What he saw made his whole body lock up. A shadowy figure stood at the far end of the hallway. It wasn't shaped like an animatronic, not fully. It looked almost human, but it flickered, like it couldn't decide which shape to stay in. 1 second, it was a tall man wearing a security uniform. The next, it glitched into a broken animatronic version of the same man, metal ribs poking out, eyes glowing like little spotlights. It took 1 step towards Sammy. The floor vibrated. "Nope, nope!" Sammy turned and ran as fast as he could. The hallway stretched ahead of him, bending slightly, like a maze designed to keep him trapped. The buzzing changed to a steady electronic beep. At the far end of the hallway, a small control room appeared. Light spilled out from the doorway like a safe zone. Sammy sprinted toward it. Behind him, metal footsteps clanged, each one faster than the last. Sammy dove into the control room and slammed the door shut. The footsteps stopped right outside the door, followed by one long scrape, metal fingers dragging across the door surface. Sammy backed away, shaking. "Please don't come in. Please don't come in." The scraping stopped. Silence. Sammy didn't trust it, but he forced himself to look around the room. It was almost exactly like the night guard office from the game. Big desk, old monitor screens, tangled wires on the floor, fan turning slow and squeaky. But this time, the monitor screens didn't show security camera feeds. They showed the theater. People were still in their seats. Frozen. Stiff. Like mannequins. Claire. Ben. Everyone. M.O.M. Ben! Sammy pressed his hands to the screen even though he knew it was useless. Their eyes didn't move. They were trapped, stuck inside the theater illusion or whatever nightmare this place had become. A quiet beep made Sammy jump. One of the monitors changed. It now showed Claire inside a dark storage closet, pounding on the door. Ben sat behind her, hugging his stuffed bear and crying silently. "Hang on," Sammy whispered. "I'm coming." He grabbed the flashlight on the desk and headed for the door. But before he could touch it, all the monitors blinked to static. Then an animatronic face pushed through the static on the center screen. A big round head. Huge cartoon eyes. Teeth too sharp for a kid-friendly character. Toy Freddy. Except this toy Freddy had cracks in his faceplate and wires hanging from his jaw. It stared at Sammy through the screen like it could really see him. Then it smiled. "Lights out," it said. The room went pitch black. Sammy swung the flashlight on. The beam shook in his trembling hands. Something moved in the darkness near the desk, small footsteps, clicking like metal tapping tile. He backed toward the door. His heart thumped louder than the buzzing outside. A tiny animatronic head peeked out from behind the desk. Toy Bonnie, only smaller, like a half-finished prototype. Its eyes were bright purple, glowing like neon lights. It tilted its head at Sammy, curious, almost playful. "Stay back," Sammy whispered. The tiny animatronic blinked once, then sprang toward him with a sharp, mechanical chirp. Sammy screamed and threw himself at the door, bursting into the hallway. He ran blindly, flashlight beams shaking over the walls. Behind him, the small animatronic clattered after him, fast and light like a robot rabbit. Sammy turned a corner. Another. Until he crashed into a metal gate blocking the corridor. On the other side of the bars he saw them, Claire and Ben. They were awake now, sitting on the floor of a storage room, banging on the gate. "Sammy!" Claire yelled. "Press the panel on your left." Sammy felt along the wall and found a small keypad glowing faintly. He reached for it. But the little animatronic caught up. It crawled onto his shoulder with impossible speed, its metal claws gripping his shirt. Its mouth opened with a sharp click. Sammy froze as its glowing purple eyes stared into his. Ben screamed behind the gate. "Sammy, look out!" The animatronic's jaw snapped open wider, too wide, its mouth buzzing with sparks. Just as a huge shadow fell over them from behind. A towering figure stepped into the hallway. Not Toy Bonnie. Not Toy Freddy. Not any toy. This one had long arms, sharp ears, and eyes that burned like fire. With a slow, heavy breath. With a voice low enough to shake the air. It whispered, "Night begins now." And it reached for Sammy.